The moment a man stops begging for emotional attention, something strange begins to happen. People feel it before they understand it. His silence becomes heavier. His presence becomes stronger. And the woman who once thought she had full access to his heart starts wondering why he no longer reacts the same way. This is not about becoming cold. It is not about pretending you do not care. It is about reaching a point where your peace no longer depends on someone else's mood, reply, approval, or affection. Most men lose their power not because they love too much, but because they need too much. And the more emotionally dependent a man becomes, the more invisible his value becomes. Hello everyone, welcome to the Magnetic Masculinity channel. In this video, we will uncover why men become more attractive when they stop chasing emotional validation, why distance creates mystery, and why self-control can make a man unforgettable. Now, let's get started. Part 1. The more you need someone, the less they can truly see you. There is a quiet truth that most men discover only after they have been hurt. The more desperately you need someone to stay, the less freedom they feel when they are with you. At first, emotional dependence does not look dangerous. It disguises itself as love. It sounds like constant reassurance, endless texting, waiting for every reply, overthinking every silence, and feeling anxious whenever someone becomes emotionally distant. You tell yourself that this is what caring looks like. But slowly, without realizing it, your emotional world begins to revolve around another person's choices. Your happiness depends on their attention. Your confidence depends on their approval. Your peace depends on their mood. And when another human being becomes responsible for your emotional stability, you unknowingly hand them the keys to your self-worth. People are naturally drawn to emotional strength because it creates safety. But when they feel responsible for carrying someone else's emotions every single day, attraction often begins to fade. Not because that person is cruel, but because relationships become heavy when one person is expected to provide constant emotional balance. A man who cannot enjoy his own life without someone else's validation slowly stops being seen as a partner and starts being seen as someone searching to be completed. That is why the strongest men are not those who love the least. They are the ones who have learned to love without abandoning themselves. They can miss someone without losing themselves. They can care deeply without becoming emotionally dependent. They can walk beside another person without asking them to carry the weight of their identity. The greatest transformation in a man's life begins the day he realizes that love should enrich his life, not become the foundation holding it together. Part 2. The man who stops chasing becomes the man. People notice. One of the biggest misunderstandings about attraction is believing that mystery is something you create. It is not. Real mystery appears when you stop explaining every feeling, stop reacting to every disappointment, and stop trying to convince people of your worth. Think about the men who leave a lasting impression. They are rarely the loudest. They are rarely the ones demanding attention. More often, they are calm. They listen more than they speak. They smile without needing approval. They walk away without creating drama. That kind of presence cannot be faked. It comes from a man who has learned that not every silence needs to be filled. Not every misunderstanding needs to be corrected. And not every person deserves unlimited access to his emotional world. Ironically, the harder you try to be seen, the easier you are to overlook. But when your attention shifts toward your own purpose, your own growth, and your own peace, something changes. People begin to wonder what has changed about you. Your absence becomes noticeable. Your words carry more weight because you no longer speak to seek validation. Your time becomes valuable because you are no longer giving it away to anyone who asks. This is why emotional independence often feels magnetic. It removes desperation. It replaces anxiety with quiet confidence. And confidence that does not beg to be noticed has a strange effect on people. It makes them notice you anyway. The truth is, attraction grows in the space where curiosity exists. When every emotion is immediately revealed, every fear instantly confessed, and every insecurity constantly explained, there is little left to discover. But a man who is comfortable with silence communicates something powerful without saying a single word. He tells the world that his life continues with or without applause, that he values connection but refuses to depend on it. And that quiet certainty is often more attractive than any perfect appearance, expensive lifestyle, or carefully chosen words. Because in the end, people are not drawn to the man who constantly asks, "Do I matter to you?" They are drawn to the man who has already answered a far more important question: "Do I matter to myself?" Before we continue, take a moment to ask yourself one honest question. Have you ever confused emotional dependence with love? If this message is speaking to a part of your life that few people truly understand, take a second to subscribe to the channel. Every video here is created to help you build unshakable confidence, emotional strength, and the quiet mindset of a man who no longer needs to chase respect. It naturally earns it. Now let's explore the next lesson, because this is where most men unknowingly give away their power, and where everything can finally begin to change. Part 3. Emotional control is not the same as emotional distance. One of the greatest mistakes a man can make is believing that becoming emotionally independent means shutting down his heart. It doesn't. There is a world of difference between a man who hides his emotions and a man who has learned to master them. The first is afraid of being hurt. The second is no longer controlled by fear. Many men, after experiencing betrayal, rejection, or disappointment, decide that the safest path is to stop caring altogether. They become distant. They stop trusting. They convince themselves that feeling nothing is a sign of strength. But a heart that feels nothing cannot truly love either. That is not freedom. That is self-protection disguised as wisdom. Real emotional strength looks very different. It allows you to love deeply without becoming possessed by the fear of losing someone. It allows you to care without making another person's choices the center of your emotional world. It gives you the courage to be honest about your feelings while accepting that you cannot control someone else's response. This kind of confidence cannot be borrowed from motivational quotes or temporary success. It is built in the quiet moments when life forces you to face disappointment without letting it harden your character. Every setback teaches you patience. Every rejection reminds you that your worth was never decided by one person's opinion. Every goodbye teaches you that some chapters end so better ones can begin. The emotionally grounded man understands something that many people spend years trying to learn. Love is a gift, not a guarantee. Respect is earned, not demanded. And peace is created from within, not handed to you by another person. That is why he no longer panics when someone pulls away. He no longer chases every misunderstanding. He no longer measures his value by how much attention he receives. Instead, he chooses something far more powerful. He chooses to become the kind of man whose inner peace remains steady, whether someone stays beside him or walks away. Because when your emotions are guided by wisdom instead of fear, you stop living in survival mode, and that is the moment your confidence stops looking like an act and starts becoming who you truly are. Part 4. The strongest man in the room is often the quietest one. There comes a point in a man's life when he realizes that strength has very little to do with winning arguments. Real strength is remaining calm when someone expects you to explode. It is walking away when your ego begs you to stay and prove a point. It is choosing peace over the temporary satisfaction of being right. Many men spend years believing that dominance comes from speaking louder, reacting faster, or showing everyone that they cannot be disrespected. But experience teaches a different lesson. The man who must constantly defend his value is usually the one who doubts it the most. Confidence does not rush to explain itself. It does not demand recognition. It does not seek permission to exist. Instead, it moves quietly, allowing actions to speak where words would only create noise. This is why emotionally independent men often appear more attractive without trying. When criticism comes, they listen before they react. When rejection comes, they feel the pain, but they refuse to let it define them. When someone walks away, they do not chase. Not because they lack love, but because they understand that love without mutual choice eventually becomes emotional imprisonment. There is an old lesson that life teaches every man sooner or later. The people who truly value you will never require you to abandon your dignity just to keep them. The moment you begin sacrificing your self-respect for attention, affection, or approval, you slowly teach others that your boundaries are negotiable. And once your boundaries disappear, your identity begins to disappear with them. A man becomes unforgettable not because he is emotionally unavailable, but because he is emotionally grounded. He does not suppress his feelings. He understands them. He does not avoid vulnerability. He simply chooses carefully who has earned the right to see it. That quiet self-control creates a presence that cannot be imitated. Because in a world where most people react instantly, the man who responds with patience becomes impossible to ignore. And perhaps that is the greatest secret of all. The most attractive man is not the one who has mastered other people's emotions. He is the one who has finally mastered his own. Part 5. The day you stop needing to be chosen is the day you become truly free. Perhaps the greatest turning point in a man's life is not the day he finds the perfect relationship. It is the day he realizes that his happiness was never supposed to depend on one. For years, many men spend their lives trying to become enough for someone else. They change the way they speak. They hide parts of themselves. They tolerate disrespect. They sacrifice their dreams, all because they believe that being chosen by another person will finally make them feel complete. But life has a way of revealing a painful truth. No amount of love from another person can fill the emptiness created by abandoning yourself. The moment your identity depends entirely on someone else's affection, fear quietly enters every part of your relationship. You become afraid of losing them, afraid of disappointing them, afraid of saying the wrong thing, afraid of being replaced. And fear has a way of changing love into control. You begin chasing reassurance instead of building trust. You seek constant proof instead of enjoying genuine connection. Without realizing it, you stop experiencing love and start surviving it. Then one day something changes, not because the world becomes kinder, not because people suddenly treat you differently, but because you finally understand that your value has never been something another person had the power to give or to take away. From that moment forward, your relationships begin to transform. You no longer stay where respect is missing. You no longer beg to be understood by those who have already decided not to listen. You no longer confuse attention with affection or attachment with love. Instead, you bring something far more valuable into every relationship: choice. You choose to love, not because you are afraid of being alone, but because you have discovered that solitude is no longer your enemy. You choose commitment, not because you need someone to complete your life, but because you want to share a life that is already meaningful. That quiet shift changes everything. People sense it, not because you become emotionally unavailable, but because you become emotionally unshakable. And there is something timeless about a man who can give his heart without surrendering his identity. Because in the end, the most attractive man is never the one who is loved by everyone. He is the one who has learned to respect himself so deeply that he never again asks another person to decide whether he is worthy of love. That is the kind of confidence no one can give you, and no one can ever take away. Conclusion. The greatest transformation in a man's life does not begin when he finds the right person. It begins when he becomes the right person for himself. The moment you stop depending on others to define your happiness, your confidence, or your worth, you discover a kind of freedom that no relationship can ever replace. Ironically, that is also the moment people begin to see you differently. Not because you have become colder, but because you have become stronger, calmer, and more secure within yourself. True attraction is never created by chasing love. It is created by building a life that remains meaningful, with or without someone else's approval. The lesson is simple, but it takes courage to live by it. Love deeply, but never lose yourself. Care sincerely, but never abandon your self-respect. Build a life so rich with purpose, discipline, and inner peace that no rejection can destroy it and no praise can define it. Every day, invest a little more in your character than in seeking validation, because the strongest relationships are built by two complete people, not by two people trying to complete each other. If this message resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and join a community of men who are committed to becoming wiser, stronger, and emotionally unshakable. There are many more life-changing lessons ahead, and your support inspires us to continue creating content that helps men grow with confidence, purpose, and quiet strength. Thank you for taking the time to watch until the end of the video. See you in the next videos.